es genio, y buscan mi hija no es bonita. Ojo, para que vean las proyecciones. Van a ver que las búsquedas en Google de si tu tamaño de tu órgano sexual es grande o pequeño, de si tu mujer te pone el cuerno cuando se va a Las Vegas con sus amigas. Brutal lo que este cuate hace. Google Correlate, pero ese no es lo importante. Lo trascendente es lo que él logró para saber que Trump iba a ganar. Él empezó a darse cuenta que Trump es un follower de los verdaderos líderes, lo que la gente siente. Y dijo, aquí en Estados Unidos hay un gran racismo, hay una división muy fuerte entre los afroamericanos y los que no son. Y entonces Trump está despertando el racismo. Y entonces empezó a buscar correlaciones sobre la palabra nigger, que es políticamente incorrecta. Y se empezó a dar cuenta que donde la búsqueda de la palabra nigger existía, esos lugares inmediatamente con Big Data iban a votar a favor de Trump. Y predijo y correlacionó con una R cuadrada de casi 1, que quiere decir casi perfecta, con .97, que Trump ganaba. Les va a hablar de México, y si no lo hace yo luego le pregunto, porque hemos hablado del tema. Seth es una mente brillante, es un verdadero pensador, nerd, que tiene intuición, que puede contestar una pregunta muy incendiaria. De verdad, todos mentimos y Google sabe más de nosotros que nosotros mismos de nuestro propio ser. Bienvenido, Seth, welcome.
Hola. For the past 80 years, if you want to understand what people are doing, if you want to know what they're thinking, what they're going to do, why they do the things they do, you have one approach. You ask them. So people conduct a survey, Gallup or Pew or some other organization will go around and ask people questions about their lives. And there's a problem with this approach, which is that people lie to surveys. So a lot of times Gallup asks you a question on the phone and you don't tell the truth, you tell what you think will impress the person asking the survey. So I'll give you an example. In American elections, they ask people, did you vote in the previous election? In a survey. They can compare that number, what people say, to what they actually did. And I find this amazing. More than half of people who didn't vote tell the survey, yeah, I voted, I'm a good citizen, I exercise my civic duty. People don't want to admit to surveys that they didn't vote in the elections, they lie. My favorite example of lying in surveys, more of an R-rated example. Surveys, they ask men and women about their sexual behavior. They ask how frequently they have sex, whether it's heterosexual sex, and whether they use a condom. So you ask women this question. Women say heterosexual women say they average sex once a week. They use a condom 20% of the time. You do the math, women say they're averaging 1.1 billion condoms used in sex every year. You ask the same question to men, they report 1.6 billion condoms used in heterosexual sex every year. Does everybody see, by definition, those have to be the same? So we know that somebody's not telling the truth, that somebody's lying to surveys about just how much sex they're having. So who's telling the truth? There's data on how many condoms are sold every year. Only 600 million condoms are sold every year. Some of them thrown out and some of them used by gay men. So now everybody's lying about sex, men just more than women. But we now have a new way to understand people, to know what they're really doing and what they're really thinking, and that is people's Google searches. And people tell things to Google, their secrets that they might not tell anybody else, that they might not tell their friends, their family members, their husbands and wives, surveys, doctors. They kind of confess their secrets to Google. I call Google digital truth serum because it gets people to tell what they're really thinking and really want to know and really want to see. And when you look at Google data, you find that people are very different than they say. So for example, there are more Google searches for porn than for weather. Even though if you ask people in a survey, do you watch porn? Fewer than 20% of people admit that they watch porn. Everybody, of course, would say, yeah, I check the weather. And over again, we see that data from Google Trends, data set I analyze, is better than data from surveys, from what people say. It's more predictive of what they're actually going to do. So for example, I said you can't really trust when people say, if you ask people, are you going to vote in the upcoming election? Everybody says in a survey, yes, I'm going to vote, sure, I'm going to vote. And it doesn't tell us whether they actually turn out to vote. But you can look at Google searches, how to vote, where to vote, polling places. These predict with great accuracy if more people are searching for information on voting, more people turn out to vote. Another example, it's a sad example, but I think an important example. Millions of people search on Google suicidal, how to commit suicide, ways to commit suicide. These searches predict actual suicides in an area. So when more people are searching for ways to commit suicide, more people end up committing suicide. And we want to think as a society, how can we use this information to maybe help people struggling with mental illness, with suicidal thoughts. And this is how I started my research on Google searches. I measured racism. So if you ask people in a survey, are you racist? What do you think people say? No, of course not me, you got the wrong person, not in a million years, I don't have those attitudes. People don't want to admit that they have racist thoughts. But I was shocked by how many people make racist searches on Google. So this is the United States, obviously. I need to use offensive language, if you can imagine what a racist search is. So just to understand the science, the research. This is a map of Google searches that include the word nigger. Really, really nasty word, obviously horrible word, mocking African Americans. Most people making these searches are looking for jokes, mocking and humiliating African Americans in the United States. And I was shocked by how common these searches are made. So people make this search for the word nigger more than they search for migraine, economist, Lakers. It's not a fringe search. Millions of Americans make these searches even though they've never admitted. So I did this research and I said, and darker red means higher racism, lighter red means lower racism. And I created this map. I said, there's a racism problem in the United States that people don't know about. And when I first did the research, a lot of people kind of ignored it. Okay, what does this even mean? But recently we had a presidential candidate in the United States by the name of Donald Trump. And he said some very racist things. He questioned whether Barack Obama, the first black president, was born in the United States. He retweeted false statistics about how frequently blacks commit crime. He got involved with tweeting things related to the KKK or white nationalism. And people ask me, you have this map of secret racism in the United States from Google searches, from people searching these jokes mocking black people. Does that explain why Donald Trump is doing so well? And data scientists, they looked at the data. support for Donald Trump in the Republican primary and racist searches on Google, they found, oh, the map is not here, but they found it was the single highest support measure they could ever find. The biggest predictor of support for Donald Trump was racist searches on Google. So areas that made more racist searches, that had darker red, that were more secretly racist, supported Donald Trump in bigger numbers than anywhere else. So this kind of secret racism explained why Donald Trump did so well. And one thing I want to keep in mind, people to keep in mind, so I study what's called big data. And all big data is not the same. So I talk about Google, and that's this revolutionary data source because people are so honest, they confess their secrets, they tell things to Google that they might not tell anyone else, that they're suicidal or they're racist or the porn they want to watch. And it serves as digital truth serum. Compare that to the other big data source we now have on people, their Facebook profiles, what they put on Facebook, the posts they make about their lives. And do people think people are honest on Facebook in the same way they're honest on Google? No. I call Facebook digital brag to my friends about how good my life is serum. Because everybody wants to show off how great their life is, right? And how present an image to all their friends. And over again, we see that the data on Facebook doesn't correspond to reality at all. So an example of Facebook data being misleading. I compared two magazines, the Atlantic Monthly, these are American magazines, and the National Enquirer. So the Atlantic Monthly is a serious, highbrow, intellectual magazine. It includes poetry and political theory and philosophy. The National Enquirer is a celebrity gossip, trashy magazine. It talks about who's got divorced or who weighs 500 pounds now. We know how popular these magazines are in reality. In reality, the actual copies purchased, 3 times more people read the National Enquirer, the trashy magazine, than the Atlantic Monthly, the serious magazine. What happens on Facebook when people say what they like to their friends? On Facebook likes, the Atlantic Monthly is actually, the intellectual magazine is actually more popular. In fact, it's 45 times more popular than the National Enquirer. So everybody wants their friends to think they're so intellectual, right? And it's actually fun if we compare these two different data sources, Facebook, which is public, people presenting an image to their friends, and Google, which is anonymous, people confessing what they're really thinking, their secret thoughts. We can compare these two different data sources on the same topic. So I compared how people describe their husbands on Facebook and on Google. So let's start with Facebook. When people are posting on social media, my husband is. They're making a post and all their friends are going to see it. My husband is. What do people think the top way people complete that phrase is on Facebook? I think someone guessed it. I think you're all close. But the number one is the best. I think someone said that in this corner. The best, okay. Congratulations, she's the winner. So the best is number 1. Number 2, my best friend. Number 3, all right. Number 3, amazing. Number 4, the greatest. And number 5, so cute. So that's marriage according to social media when all your friends see. What happens on Google when you're by yourself? Nobody's seeing what you're typing. What do people type about their husbands? My husband is. And the third most common Google search that starts my husband is, you're jumping ahead, is actually the exact same as Facebook. It's my husband is amazing. The exact same as Facebook, which is the most surprising of everything in this data, because why are you telling Google that? Like if you type my husband is amazing, what's Google going to tell you? Congratulations. So that one checks out as the same social media public, Google private. But what about the other searches that people make on Google? Very, very different. So rounding out the top 5, Google searches about husbands. My husband is gay, a jerk, annoying, and mean. So I have a lot more on all this topic on my book, Everybody Lies, which is in the bookstore as well. And I think I'm going to just take a couple questions, if we still have time, for Andres. But thank you very much. Gracias. Gracias.
Bravo, wow. Seth, please keep talking. When I read your book, I was surprised of many things. One that for me was really shocking was about the search of incest. Could you share a little bit about it?
Yeah. So I have a whole section in my book about pornography, because speak about an area where people don't tell the truth, what people desire, their sexual desires, and data from the internet, from pornography. I worked with a company, Pornhub, which is one of the biggest porn sites in the website in the world, and they gave me all their data on the porn searches that people make. And I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound creepy, that I basically spent all day in my apartment analyzing porn. But it is obviously a shocking window into people, because it's something people don't always talk about. There are so many things in the data that's surprising, but one of the things that shocked me that Andres never talked about, like, I think it's something about 10% of porn searches now are for incest, for mom, dad, stepmom, stepdad, brother, sister. And I don't know what to make of this initially, but it's something. The data from porn tells us that people are really, really weird, and it's not usually talked about. So, I don't know what to make of it.
In your book also, and I have heard you talk about the probabilities that you could do when you're a banker and you're going to give a credit.
Yeah.
And the predictions that you make on who will pay the credit and who won't pay the credit, for me was amazing. Could you share with us a little bit about that methodology and what are the hints of how to interview people if you're a banker to know if they will pay or not?
Yeah. So you can predict, there's a website where people ask for loans, and they write a little description of why you should give me a loan. And then they get the loan, they either pay it back or they don't pay it back. It turns out you can predict with great accuracy whether they'll pay back the loan based on the words they include in their loan application. So if they include the phrase, "I promise," they're not paying back the loan. So don't give a loan to anybody who uses the phrase, "I promise." And then that's maybe not so shocking, but some of them are like, sometimes data we don't even understand why. If you use the phrase "thank you," less likely to pay back a loan. I don't know why, but it's in the data. And if you use the word "God," way less likely to pay back a loan. So I don't know. It's kind of a little creepy, because you can imagine you're a nice person, you have every intention of paying back a loan, and you end your email, you end your little application with "and God bless you," and "thank you and God bless you," you don't get the loan. So I don't know. It's a little. I think there's a frightening aspect to the power of big data.
That could prove that God exists or it does not. Just kidding. About Mexico. I remember that when I met you and we had a nice coffee and then we have lunch in New York, I told you, could you search about Mexico?
Yeah.
And something that you mentioned to me 2 or 3 weeks later was Mexicans are concerned about public policy much more than Americans. Do you remember that?
I vaguely remember that.
Please.
Yeah, so I think.
What was your search at the end?
Yeah, I don't remember. I have to look into it again, but there does seem to be more interest. So when you look at Americans and what they search about politicians, it's never their policy. It's like, how old is Trump? Why is Trump's hair real? Why is Trump orange? Like, they're just all questions about what people look like. And Mexicans, actually, they're less superficial. They actually ask questions like, what are you going to do about poverty? What are you going to do about income inequality? So I was impressed with Mexicans. That's the number one thing that impressed me about Mexicans. The other thing that impressed me about Mexicans is I looked at the searches around the world that people make about when their wife is pregnant, the Google searches people make when they have a pregnant wife around the world. And the top searches about my pregnant wife in Mexico, my Spanish is horrible, this might be horrible, frases de amor para mi esposa embarazada. Words of love to my pregnant wife. And poemas para mi esposa embarazada. Poems for my pregnant wife. Like, amazing. And I looked in the United States, my country, the top search about pregnant wife. My wife is pregnant, now what? And my wife is pregnant, what do I do? So, I think Mexicans are the clear, Mexican men, a round of applause for Mexican husbands and how they treat their...
¡Bravo! Señoras y señores, un gran aplauso. Really, thank you very much. Would you like to say something else?
No, that's great.
Thank you very much. El libro se encuentra, primero, Gratitud de Librería Gandhi, patrocinador de las Solas Ideas. Allí se encuentran los libros de Seth. Antes de pasar a nuestra última participante, quiero dar una gratitud.